Work, I had put it off because I was. Work, are you still seeing or you're not seeing? Oh, unfortunate. Like I said, my internet is sketchy. So how many of you are not seeing? If you are not seeing, please let us know so that we can sort of adjust somehow.
It says you have started sharing the screen, but there's nothing. There's nothing on the screen.
Oh, okay. Who else is seeing the same thing? Who else is not seeing the screen?
Same this side.
Modi, you're not seeing?
Yes, I'm not. I'm not seeing.
Okay, let me just try once again. And,
Yes, it's up now. I can see from my side.
Are you seeing it now? Okay.
Yeah,
From my side,
Okay,
yes.
okay, great. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Good. Okay. I'm glad. A fact-checking and information project of DeFi Ahead Now, the organized program. And our session to be fact-checked and what cannot. I see most of you complaining that my voice is very sketchy. Is it clear now?
Yeah, it is now clear.
It is clear, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. In case it gets sketchy at any point, just let me know so that I can change my internet connectivity to a more reliable one. So I was saying that in today's session, we'll basically look at what can be checked and what cannot be fact-checked and under what circumstances. So we say that, of course, for fact-checkers, we ask ourselves two important questions before we select any claim that we would like to evaluate. One of the questions we ask ourselves is this important? And we also ask ourselves, is this fact-checkable? So I just want us to, before I dive into my presentation, I want us to look at this brief write-up that has been put by Africa Check Africa Check is Africa's first an independent fact-checking organization, and they do a lot of work around that, including mentoring institutions and stuff like that. So they have a brief write-up on what can be checked or what cannot be checked. And yeah, I hope you guys are seeing my new screen. I will be moving it. Yeah. So first of all, when people say things, the other one is an opinion. So opinion is usually not very subjective in nature, and opinion is usually not based on evidence that can be checked. And opinion can often be very biased, and it is based on someone's experiences or someone's view of the world or someone's belief system. But then when we talk of a fact is usually backed by evidence, and a fact can be checked and as well can be verified. So this is the major difference between fact and opinion. And you need to understand these two things when you are trying to select claims that you would like to fact check. And then we have this. What cannot be fact checked? You cannot fact check opinions of people. You cannot fact check what people think about certain things that happen in our societies. And then also you cannot fact check predictions. Predictions, these are claims about the future. For instance, if somebody says, I am not going to have I'm not going to give, I'm not going to have children of my own. This one cannot be checked because this is something about the future, and this is just a prediction. Somebody is trying to predict that I may not have kids in the future. So you cannot fact check two things: opinions, and also you cannot fact check claims about the future. For instance, fine today. Now, it depends on what their definition of fine is. Not the way I define fine. Something may be bad to maybe, so this is an opinion, and so it cannot be think about certain issues. And then you cannot like this. If somebody says, Johanna did, is my voice still sketchy, or you guys are getting me now?
It is intermittent.
It is clear. It is clear.
Kind of sketchy.
Okay, let me just change my my internet connection to a different network, and then we see how it goes. Let me just change that. I hope this will be reliable for us. Yeah, otherwise, the point here is that you cannot fact check predictions and you cannot fact check opinions, just like the ones we've said it earlier. So you can sort of check um, other different claims that do not belong to those categories that are stated that are not stated in the above, that is to say in the classes of opinion as well as in the class of prediction. So also if somebody says if somebody says it is 25 degrees Celsius in Johannesburg, this one you can check because you can sort of get your thermometer and sort of look at the temperature at the moment, or you look at what the weather station says about the weather at that particular hour. So this is something that can obviously be checked, and it's not a prediction or it's not an opinion about the issue at hand. So claims that can be checked on, and so if one is not critical, it can be very tricky in choosing the kind of investigation that one intends to undertake. So it's now dependent on the fact checker to be able to do what is good for their investigation, depending on the importance of the matter and the potential of the particular claim to mislead the public. I don't know whether you guys are getting me clearly now. I'm trying to change my internet connectivity here. And
Yes, your voice is clear. You
still,
can go on.
okay. I'm just trying to change my internet to something that is very reliable, and so we can have a session that is not being interrupted. All of you know, it's yeah, it's something that is
Guys, what's happening? There's no voice. I'm not hearing anything.
I think Bida is having difficulties in communicating with us. I think his network is tripping. So let's give him a chance to change the switch from whatever network
Are you
was using to another.
guys getting?
Bida is working on it. It's going to come now.
Are you guys getting me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now I have a reliable internet. I assure you that we are going to continue. We're going to end the session without another interruption. And thank you so much for the patience. Now let's continue. I was giving examples of claims that can be checked when we look at these examples, because we say that we should be very careful about opinions. We should also be careful about predictions or claims about the future, because these are things that cannot be checked. And then other things about the present can be obviously checked using publicly available data. So let us look at the following. If somebody says a total of 14 billion Ghanaians will be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 by the end of 2022. So this one here, obviously you cannot fact check this, because this is a prediction. This is something about the future, and you don't know how people will be receiving the vaccination. All of you have seen cases of vaccine hesitancy in a lot of countries. And so this is something that we cannot check, but we can check at the end of 2022, we see how many Ghanaians have been fact-checked, have been vaccinated. And then when somebody says COVID-19 is caused by a strain of coronavirus, this one can be checked. You can look at scientific reports, you can look at science journals, and you see what they have been saying about the cause of the COVID-19 disease. And then when we say the World Health Organization is doing the best it can in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic, this is just an opinion and it cannot be checked, because your definition of best is not my definition of best, because you may define best as what you think it is, but then I may define best as what I think it is. So in this case, this is something that cannot be fact checked. And then, so what can be checked? Let us just run ourselves through what can really be checked. One, you can fact check the following things, okay? One, you can fact check historical data, okay? Historical data is something that can be easily fact checked. So this historical data, for instance, if somebody says in 2019, coffee made up 20% of Uganda's exports. So you can easily look at the export data of Uganda in 2019, and then you look at what percentage makes up sort of coffee export in Uganda. That is something that can be easily fact checked. Another thing is you can check statistics. For instance, if somebody says 1 in 10 children in Africa does not reach their 5th birthday, you look at the mortality rates, the mortality rate of African children, like what age is usually African children die. So you can look at researches that have been done by several institutions, and that can give you sort of an idea of the statistics of the death rate among African children. So this is something that can be checked. And then another thing that can be checked is legality, how legal something is. For instance, if somebody says a 70-year-old can run for the office of the president in Kenya, this one is simple. You can just refer to the constitution, then you see what the constitution says about running for elections. You can also contact somebody who is a law expert, and the law expert can sort of give you an idea of what it looks like for somebody to run for the office of the president in a country like Kenya. So another thing that can be fact-checked is comparisons. For instance, people look at the unemployment rate in Ethiopia is 4 times higher than that in Kenya. So you can look at what is the employment rate like in Ethiopia, And what is the employment rate like in Kenya? Obviously, there are researches that have been done by big organizations like the World Bank and other agencies, even local organizations, or even statistical agencies. Most of these countries, they have statistical agencies that you can refer to and can give you an idea of what unemployment rate looks like in each of the countries. And then you can compare the data and whether it really makes up to 4 times. So these are 4 things that can be fact-checked: historical data, statistics, legality of a particular thing, and then comparison of data. So when you are deciding what to fact-check, usually, like I said, you should ask yourself, what will be the overall impact if the statement or claim is not fact-checked? That is why usually a lot of people come to us and say, hey, why are you not fact-checking this and stuff like that. This is because before we fact-check any statement, we ask ourselves very critical questions about the particular claim, and then the answers to these questions will determine whether we should really fact-check a particular thing. The question we ask is, will this thing put people's lives at risk? If it is not fact-checked, will it put people's life at risk? We also ask ourselves, will it have an impact on important decisions that the public will have to make? You see, this is another question that we ask ourselves. Then we also ask ourselves, how prominent is the person or organization who shares information? How prominent is the person or organization who shared the claim? Again, you have to ask whether this claim is spreading unnecessary fear. And now you ask yourself the big question, is it fact-checkable? Fact-checkable means, are you able to get data or evidence to confirm or to refute the claim? And the last question you ask yourself is the false information widely spread, or might your fact-checking report amplify it? So because there are cases where the thing is not widely spread, but then if you fact-check it, there are high chances that your fact-check will amplify it, and people's perceptions about the issue will be very different, and it wouldn't be the way you expected when you were publishing the fact check. So these are 6 important questions that you ask yourself if you must decide what you want to fact check. Another thing is, one thing is you look at the tipping point. So we say that this is a quote from Clare from Fast Draft. Clare says that all journalists and their editors should understand the risks of legitimizing a rumor and spreading it further than it might have otherwise traveled. You know, there are some reports that media houses make which are highly inciting. So sometimes if they leave such issues, and if they leave such issues without being fact-checked, like, it wouldn't cause unnecessary spread of the information. But then when media reports on it, it amplifies that. So this is something that we avoid in a fact-checking organization. We make sure that we do not want to publish something that otherwise would make the information to spread further. So this is something that is very important. Even editors should be very careful of this. And then you ask yourself, is the content restricted to a niche community? Is it spreading quickly on a particular platform? Is it jumping from one platform to the next? Is it going from Facebook to Twitter to WhatsApp to TikTok? You see, so these are very important questions that you should ask yourself in deciding what you should fact check. Yeah, so if you have any questions about that, you can ask before I go to my main presentation. But this is just a real summary of my entire presentation. So if you have questions, please do ask before I jump into my main presentation. Questions? You can raise your hand or you can put your question in the chat box. Oh, looks like you guys are all cool. Nice. Let me go to my main presentation, and I hope you guys are seeing my new screen, and that is my main presentation for today. Let us follow it carefully, and we ask questions where necessary because it sort of gives you an idea of what you can really fact check and what you cannot fact check. So like I said, the students who are not there, we say that for you to get a fact-checkable claim, we as fact-checkers, we ask ourselves two crucial questions when we select what we would like to evaluate. One is we look at the importance of the matter, and we look at the fact that this thing can be fact-checkable or it cannot be fact-checkable. So when we say, is this thing important? So this first question necessarily entails an editorial decision. So this is an editorial decision in the newsroom. Of course, time is very limited and not all claims can be fact-checked. This is again a misconception that South Sudanese have. Like they think that every wrong claim can be fact-checked or every claim that can, no, it's not like that. Not every claim can be fact-checked. So it is very important that there is a mission or a philosophy to guide the selection of claims to check. So for instance, when we look at an organization like Africa Check asks itself 4 questions, including what impact the statement will have if it has gone unchecked. And then an organization like PolitiFact asks questions like, is the statement significant or it was just a slip of a tongue? Because sometimes people can say things while they talk. So is it really a significant statement or it was just simply a slip of a tongue? And then again, is the statement verifiable through facts or it was just an opinion or is a political hyperbole? So these are questions that we ask ourselves if we must decide what we would like to fact check. And then, is this fact checkable? This is the last element of the question. So this one here, talks about whether the claim is fact checkable. And this will be the focus of an exercise. So for instance, fact checkers will have a long list of claims that they started working on, but sometimes you can stop in the middle because you cannot find solid evidence to support or to refute the claim. So this is because you've not put the mission in place and the philosophy that can guide your work. So we say that the public claims are full of prediction and opinions that are not by their nature fact-checkable. So this is something that you guys should understand, especially if you're looking at setting up a fact-checking desk. You should understand that there are a lot of claims in the public domain, but most of them are predictions and most of them are just mere opinions. So they are by their nature not fact-checkable. So also there are a lot of statements that sit somehow uncomfortably in the middle between a clear fact and a clear opinion. So let us look at the following examples. I want you to give your opinions of what you think about this. If somebody says the unemployment rate has decreased by 2 points in the 4 months since I became president, let's say this is some president saying that since I became president, the unemployment rate has decreased by 2 points in the 4 months. What do you think? Do you think this is something that can be checked or it cannot be checked? And then another thing somebody says, the private sector's confidence in my government has led to a 2-point decrease in the unemployment figures. And lastly, without my government, we wouldn't have seen unemployment fall by 2 points. So this is like a president maybe probably addressing people after being elected president. So these are all claims that the president made. So according to you, which one can be checked and which one can be checked? Adao is saying that the first one can be checked. The unemployment rate has decreased by 2 points in the 4 months since I became president. What about the second and the third? Would they be checked? You can write like, what you do is you type, for instance, 1, checked, 2, maybe not fact checkable, 3, not fact checkable. Just write in that point in case you are typing. But if you would like to talk, you can raise your hand and then I will allow you unmute. Yes, John Good, welcome.
Thank you. Number 3 is not fact checkable because it is an opinion. Thank you.
What about number 2? What about number 2 and number 1, according to you? Yeah, I see Alex is saying 1 can be checked.
Number
Good.
one is also fact checkable.
And number two?
And number two is also fact checkable.
Okay, good. And I see Asik is saying one can be checked and two can be checked. Thor is saying one can be checked, and Lual is saying one is checkable and second is checkable. What about third? So let us look at them. So the three sentences are predicted on the same basic fact. You will realize that these three statements. So one, the unemployment rate has decreased by 2 percentage points of National Statistical Agency. If you want statistical agency, the National Bureau of Statistics, in coordination with the Ministry of Labor, this is something that can be checked, yeah, through a National Statistical Agency, looking at how many people got employment since the president came. Number three is very tricky because the claim injects like a cause that it was the private sector's confidence in the government that caused unemployment to go down, you see. But it gets trickier because like when businesses are polled about trust in the government economic policy and job data, it can be broken down to determine whether the decrease in unemployment was due to more jobs were created in the public or private sector. So this is one thing that you should look, yeah. It can be checked, yeah. But then you have to look at these factors that have been explained here. So it can be very, very tricky going about fact checking that claim. So the third claim, of course, is more of an opinion, so it cannot be checked. The unemployment rate, had the president been governed by someone else, assuming someone was elected president, then since the president was elected, we cannot know what would have happened, yeah? So in this case, it is worth noting that such a claim cannot be supported in facts either, so the speaker is just playing with what? With the truth. So just like most of you said, it cannot be checked. So, like I explained earlier, what can be checked? We can check claims that can be verified with evidence and proof, but we cannot check opinions and we cannot check promises or predictions about what is going to happen in the future. So these are two things that cannot be checked: opinions, promises, and predictions about the future. But we can check claims that can be verified with evidence and proof. Mostly evidence that is available in the public, that your readers or your audience can go to the source and they can see for themselves. So opinions are based on beliefs or points of view, which often display bias because they fit our worldview and our own experience. Because when we think something is true because we agree with it, it does not make it a fact. So for instance, two people might be in the same room. Maybe we might be in the same room with John, and John says, this room is very hot. But then I say, no, this room is very cold. So these are different opinions, so they cannot be checked. But what we can check is what is the exact weather in the temperature. What is the exact temperature in the room? We can check the temperature in the room, and then we will now know what it looks like in the room. But we cannot check what those people are saying, whether it is cold, because maybe obviously the other person is feeling cold and the other person is feeling hot. But what we can check is the temperature. And a prediction, which can also not be fact-checked, is a statement predicting or promising that something will happen in the future. A fact-checker can, however, take note of what the politician promises or what a medical expert predicts will happen in the future, and then at a later stage, fact-check whether these promises were kept or the predictions were accurate. Yeah, so this is something that you should do. You can just take note of the promises or the predictions, and then when that time passes, you will get to know. You can then fact check that, hey, this person predicted this, but it hasn't happened. Another thing is this: for a statement to be fact-checkable, you have to be able to verify that statement by using publicly available data. Please, this is something you should know. For a statement to be fact-checkable, you have to be able to verify that information by publicly available data. So also fact-checking does not rely a lot on interviews, okay? Fact-checking hardly relies on interviews. Fact-checking mostly relies with information that is already available in the public domain. So I'm going to ask you this question again to tell us whether which one from these three, you tell us the fact-checkable and the one that is not fact-checkable. Like number one, no Ethiopian will have a reason to go outside of the country for medical treatment. Number two, the World Health Organization is doing the best it can in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. And lastly, COVID-19 is caused by a strain of the coronavirus. I think all this you looked at earlier, we say that number two is an opinion. It cannot be checked. Number three, you can check. And number one is a prediction, so you cannot check, you see. Yeah. So so this is any problem, any can be checked and what cannot be checked. Any question? Any question? Okay, if there are no questions, then let us proceed. So the next thing we're going to look at the fact-checking process. We say that there is 5-step fact-checking process that is used by Africa Check. So most references in this presentation will be done to Africa Check because most of our trainings that we attended have been done by Africa Check. So we use most of the processes that they use in their newsroom. So the first step in Africa Check's fact-checking process is to verify the exact wording of the claim, that is the verbatim. So people are often incorrectly misquoted. People are often incorrectly quoted, although this is something that just is a handy excuse. But if the claim was reported in a newspaper or an online publication, you should get an audit what exactly the person said. You should not rely on the newspaper report or on the report of a news website, because some of these people or some of these journalists may not have correctly quoted what the person said. So the tips for you to find a recording as a fact checker who attended the event and ask whether they're with you. And you can check if there's a video of the event on YouTube or an official social media account. You can also check radio stations. They often package their shows as podcasts. So you can contact the producer for the clip of that particular radio show. So these are important tips that you can use to get a recording as a fact checker. So, but if you are unable to locate a recording, you can make it clear in the fact check that the claim was reported to have been made. This is to show that you do not directly get the claim, but it was reported to have been made. And also you need to ask the person or the organization whether they were quoted correctly for the evidence on which the claim was based. Yeah. So in case at all you didn't get the original claim, you can contact the person, the subject of the claim. You can contact them, hey, I have come across a claim that A is B, is C, is D, is X, is Y. Did you really say this? If you say this, what is the evidence to support these claims that you made? And you also have to find an original study or survey that was conducted in line with the claim. You have to reach a public figure or organization or you can liaise with the official spokesperson of the person or of the organization. You can also try to find the person's contact on an official website, or a fellow journalist may have the number of that particular subject of the claim. You can also look at Twitter or LinkedIn, or you can search for the CV of the person, and it may yield the phone number or the email address of the conduct social media searches. That session will be very helpful for contacts online and stuff like that. So the second step is you need to define the terms, defining the concepts within the claim. We talk of getting to explain like the official, the scientific, or the legal definition for all the terms or concepts in a claim, and whether the claim relates to a specific time frame, a region, or demography. So for instance, let me just share a different screen that gives us an idea of what we mean when we say you should define the claim. I don't know whether you are seeing my screen. Are you seeing my new screen? Are you seeing this? Are you seeing my screen, my new screen? Okay. So this is what it means to define. So let us look at this claim. Half the kids who drink before the age of 18 develop alcohol dependency. This is a claim that half the kids who have alcohol dependency. So when we talk of kids, what do they mean? What definition we mean by what age does this claim refer to? Or which kids in which country? We talk of half of the kids in which country? And then drink alcohol. Drink what? Like, what do you mean by drink? What do they drink? What kind? If we have alcohol, we have a lot of alcohol. So what drink do you mean? How much of that drink? How often of the drink? And then alcohol dependency. Alcohol dependency. Do you mean same as alcoholism or what? So this is the meaning of defining key concepts in a claim. Because in this claim, half the kids who drink before the age of 18 develop alcohol dependence. Obviously, the key terms here are kids, drink, and alcohol dependency. So when you're able to define this, and then it can give you a clear picture of what's up to investigate your claim. So let us look at this. For instance, if somebody says in Africa, depression affects 1 in 4 women. You see, this is another claim that in Africa, depression affects 1 in 4 women. Then again, you say Africa. Which countries in Africa? Because obviously, you cannot just generalize Africa like that. It's hard to do a research which brings all African countries together. It will cost huge chunk of money. Then depression. What do they mean by depression? How much is depression? How is depression defined in this context? Which is specific type of depression? Because we have a lot of depressions. Then affects in what way? In what way does affect mean here? And women of what age? You see, so this is the meaning of defining key concepts within a claim when you want to undertake a fact-checking exercise. I hope that is clear, guys. Let us continue with our presentation. So make sure that you define and understand each term, and also literacy. You see, when we talk of literacy, a picture of what we mean by defining literacy as the ability to read in a different way. For instance, some organizations, what some organizations do is they use school attendance. For instance, they look at up to maybe P3, and then they see that they can use how many kids attend school up to P3 class, and that can be their measure of literacy. And another one is someone can just give somebody a sentence. For instance, read this sentence. And when the person is able to read that sentence, that is already literacy according to them. Also, some surveyors, some people who do survey, like some of you who do your research, you just ask somebody, my friend, can you read and write without just testing them? And when the person says yes, already that is literacy. This person is literate. That is according, you see? So you realize that people have different definitions of literacy, and they have different ways in which they can measure literacy. So that is why it's very important for us to really understand the meaning of the key terms and concepts that have been used in a particular claim. Because just like in the example of using literacy, of how people define literacy, somebody can just ask, hey, Rufina, can you read and write? If you tell me yes, I will say, hey, Rufina is literate. Maybe somebody asks Asha, Asha, have you reached P3 class? If she says yes, then I say, oh, you are literate. Or sometimes I can just give her a sentence and say, hey, wow, this lady is what? Is literate. So you see, these are different ways, and they cannot mean the same thing to different people. So the tip for you to stay on the right track is for you to ask experts. You ask someone who is working in the field so that they're able to tell you how a concept is defined in their area of expertise. And remember, different standards of definitions may apply in different countries. So this is the second step you should undertake when you are
Excuse
doing
me, Bida.
a fact-check research, or when you're trying to evaluate a claim. Another thing is you need to inspect the evidence. Inspect the evidence using the where your research begins. Now, if the organization, you check whether it applies to your country. If it is so, is it based on, and they will do a research in Juba and, yes, please. Yes, are you getting me? Somebody was saying
Yes,
something.
we
Are you
are
guys
getting you.
getting me? Was my voice cut at some point?
Yes, but it is now okay. You
Oh,
can continue.
okay, perfect. So what's going to happen is we are going to go for, let's go for a break. I'm going to drop the attendance in the chat box, and let us get back after 8 minutes. I'm dropping the attendance in the chat box. So please fill in your attendance for today, and we will proceed from there after 8 minutes. In case people who just come in and people who fail to see the attendance and they ask, you can copy and paste for them in the chat box. Otherwise, I've dropped attendance. See you guys in 8 minutes. And if you have any questions, you can sort of ask. Cheers. Yeah, so you're welcome back from the break. I hope most of you have been able to fill the attendance. In case you haven't, you can check it here and we can proceed. I hope you guys are all back. Is there anyone whose name is not in the attendance sheet? Is there anyone here whose name is not in? I saw people complaining in the WhatsApp group, but I wonder where they have been.
I have complained because I have never missed any session, but mine is recorded as 5 times. I don't know why. I was only absent twice, but one I had asked for permission.
Okay. Okay, great. Perfect. And then you said you had filled your attendance.
Yes, but in the data which was posted on the on WhatsApp group, mine is 5 times only. I don't know why.
There's no problem. Don't worry about that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Thank you so much. Cool.
You cannot hear anything.
We haven't yet started. We're waiting for a couple of guys to get back on
Okay.
board.
Oh, all right. All right.
Okay, guys, so let us proceed. I trust that most of you are on board and we can continue with the session. I see Ayen is asking for attendance. Ayen, here is the attendance, so please do fill it. And I hope you guys are all seeing my screen. Yeah, so the step number 3. Ayen is saying she's not hearing me. Is there another person who is not hearing me? Richard, are you getting me? Can you confirm that you are getting me?
Yes, I can hear you very clearly.
But Ayen is saying she's not getting me. I wonder what the problem is. Ayen, maybe you can just check your network. A lot of people are saying they are getting me. So I was saying that okay, good. So I was saying that the third step is to inspect evidence using latest reliable data. So for instance, if the person or organization provided you with evidence for their claim, you should first check that it applies to your country, your area or group that they are referring to. And if so, if it is based on representative data. Like I was giving an example where somebody will do a research that handles only a specific population, but they would wish to generalize it, which isn't cool. And that sometimes also data from other places, especially from the United States or Europe, is transposed to African countries as though the content is the same, which shouldn't be the case. And then you also need to check whether the evidence has been updated and if it reflects the current reality. And then you should be careful that claims tend to live on long after their sell-by date due to mindless repetition. Yeah, you will realize a lot of people keep repeating the same stuff, and thereby sort of a lot of issues that cannot help in your investigative process. So you should be very careful about such kind of data that is not latest. The fourth step in your fact-checking process is you should approach experts, reach out to experts and show the claim to experts in the field and ask them which databases in the studies are the best so that you can use to judge them. You should ask the experts if the claim is correct based on the studies that they refer them to you. And if an expert can provide the database or the study, you need to go through the database or study in details so you can explain to your audience. How it was put together. You should also understand that you need to always ask. You need to cast your net wide from the beginning and ask. Also, you should decide which comments is cut. Is much better than having to pressurize people at the last minute so that they should get back to you. You should be very careful about that. And then some of the tips for finding the best available experts. One of the best tips for you to find experts is you should reach out to a university's media desk, or you should check personnel pages online. It's very useful stop. And then when you're speaking to an expert, you should ask if they can refer you to someone else, especially someone they respect, but who may disagree with them. And also you can use one of the useful Google trick is to search for a professor. Like you look for the specific subject area plus .ac or .edu. Then that can help you get a professor in a particular field. So these are important tips for you to get available experts to comment on the matter. Then the last step is you set out the evidence. This is now when you're writing your fact check. You should explain how you went about fact-checking the claim in as much detail as possible. And someone should be able to follow the evidence you set out and reach the same conclusion as you did. And for this reason, fact-checkers usually do hyperlink to source of each factual statement in a written report or attribute it to an expert. And you need to upload any documents you obtain to the internet so that others may refer to them in the future. And transparency builds trust, so there is fairness. Therefore, if you find that the claim is incorrect, first present your finding to the person or organization who made it and offer them the opportunity to comment before publishing. So that is what we call the right of reply. After doing your research, after putting your research together, you need to reach out to the person who made the claim and ask them that, hey, you said this earlier, but then I did this, and then I've been able to find out X, Y, Z. So what is your say? Do you have any comments on my findings? Then once they give reply or they don't give you reply, and then you can then go on to publish your particular claim. Otherwise, it's it's very important for you to give them the right of reply. You need to give them the right of reply. And then again, sources. There's emphasis here. There's emphasis on sources. So when you're looking at sources, you need to evaluate your sources. First, you need to look at original sources. Here are 5 characteristics of original, or what we call sometimes primary sources. 1, so one of the thing is, when you're evaluating original sources, you need to know that an original or primary source provides first-hand testimony or direct evidence. And then an original source, it's created by witnesses or recorders who experienced the events or conditions at the time it happened. This can include raw materials such as handwritten notes or data calculations. Original sources can also include autobiographies, memoirs, and oral histories recorded or published after the event. And original or primary source can also come from original results of an experiment, valid academic or scientific study. And an original source doesn't necessarily need to be in its original format. It could be a microfilm, a microfiche in a digital format, or in a published format. So these are 5 characteristics that should help you look at evaluating an original source. Now, let us consider these sources. Which one do you think is an original source? When you look at here again, we said original source provides first-hand testimony or direct evidence. It is created by witnesses or recorders who experience the events or conditions at the time it happened. It can include autobiographies, memoirs, and oral histories. It can come from original results of an experiment. An original source, of course, does not necessarily need to be in an original format, but it could be in a microfilm. So let's look at this. Which one do you think is an original source and which one is not an original source? Number 1, statistics from the City Review newspaper article that cites a World Health Organization study. Statements from actors portraying lawyers in a movie about a real crime. Number 3, data from a study conducted by the Centers for Disease Control. Number 4, statistics obtained from a court by a scientist in a BBC story. Number 5, information contained in an online version of a research study originally published in the 1985 book. So according to you, which one is an original source? Which one is a primary source from those ones, and which ones are not primary sources? I'm giving you 2 minutes for that. Look at them and give feedback in 2 minutes. Which one is an original source? Yes, who would like to try? It's tricky. It's not tricky. If you look at sources, these are the descriptions of primary sources. Provides first-hand testimony or direct evidence, the events or conditions at the time it happened, calculations. It can include autobiography. It can come from the original results of an exam, something like that. 2 minutes gone. Yes, yes, John. John, would you like to try? John?
Yes, I would like to try. They are very tricky, but
Yes,
for
please.
number 4, I am very certain it is a first and number 4 is I don't know what to say. Original
Number
source
4 is
because
a
it was,
primary source.
yeah, because it was quoted from a BBC or from a scientist in a BBC story. I think you can refer to
So
BBC.
yeah, so who is the original source here? The scientist or the BBC story?
It is the scientist.
Okay, good. What about the rest? The rest are all secondary sources, according to you?
No, they are kind of tricky, but for number 4, I was certain about it.
Okay, great. Who would like to try? Thank you so much, John. Who else wants to try to tell us which one is a primary source and which one is not a primary source?
Let me try.
Yes, Grace.
So 2, 3, and number 1 and 5 are not primary sources.
Number 1 and number?
Number 1 and 5 are not primary sources, but 2, 3, and 4, to me, I think they are.
Primary source. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And Justin, thank you so much, Grace. Justin. Yes, Justin. Yes, Justin. Justin, you can talk. Yes, Adao.
Yeah, sorry to say this, but my network was tripping, so I'm a bit lost here. Don't laugh at me though. So I'm trying to understand, but I'm kind of lost. People are contributing and I'm behind.
Okay. We were explaining to people. You see in this slide, we were explaining the characteristic of an original source. Okay. So after this explanation, we then said, which ones from the following are original sources? Which one do you think is an original source? Yes, Moses Mobruk Bingo.
Yes, thank you. Me, I think number 3. Number 3 is original source. It's not a primary. And the number 1, I mean number 2, no, number 4 is a primary source. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And yes, thank you so much, Moses. That was nice. And Adao, would you like to go again?
Yeah, I can say number 1, it's an original source because it shows that this was a statistic removed from the original, how do you call this one? From the source of the World Health Organization. For instance, it was about, for instance, it is about Corona.
Is this enough?
fit it like that.
Let me add also. Menopause is the origin source because the information is contained online the version of the Dutch study origin published in 1985. I think
Okay. 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 Good. Thank you so much, Wek. So, okay, let's look at this. So here, statistics from the City Review newspaper article that cites a World Health Organization study. So this one here is not a primary source because the primary source here is the World Health Organization study. So the City Review becomes a secondary source because they just got information from the World Health Organization study. So this is not a primary source. So the primary source is the World Health Organization study. And then the statements from actors portraying lawyers in a movie about a real crime. So this is a primary source because the statements are from these actors themselves. So they are the subjects here. So this is a primary source. Number 3 is a primary source again, because it's data from a study conducted by the Centers for Disease. Statistics obtained from a cohort by a scientist in a BBC story. So this one is an original source because BBC is the source and they interviewed the scientist. So they published the information. The information contained an online version of a research study. This is again a primary source because this is just, they did not edit anything, but they just moved the information from offline to online. I hope that is clear. Yeah. So now I hope that you guys now have identified original sources, but now, how do you determine that these sources are reliable? You need to know that reliable sources are unbiased and they have a strong history of citations from other experts and provide clear and complete details about their work. What you need to do is you need to build a matrix. You need to build a matrix to be able to assess your sources. One of the things is you need to have a source, a fact or data that you would like to assess, and you need to use a 6-point test. One of the point is proximity. You need to look at how close is the material to the subject matter. For instance, a news organization that reports the latest unemployment statistics is usually further removed from the data and therefore less valuable than the organization that actually measures employment figures. For instance, if we see iRadio reporting unemployment figures, and then we see data from the Ministry of Labor, that is the organization responsible for employment in the country, we will instead choose the statistics from the Ministry of Labor to the news report from iRadio report. Yeah, this is because the Ministry of Labor is the body mandated to undertake, is the body mandated for sightings by law. So we cannot rely on data from a mere news organization. You see that? Instead, we will look for the source of the information. You see? So this is the point. So you need to look at the proximity of your material to the subject matter. Like in this example, a news organization that reports the latest unemployment statistics is further removed from the data and is less valuable than the organization. So the organization that measures employment figures becomes valuable. Another thing you need to consider is the expertise. What credentials indicate the quality of the producer of the evidence? For instance, the author of a book who has a PhD in the subject is highly positively cited by other experts in his field. Yeah, we cannot prefer somebody who has a diploma over somebody with a PhD. Yeah, so we consider the expertise of people in the particular field for us to be able to determine for us to be able to assess our source. Another thing is you need to look at the rigor, like how was the evidence collected? For example, the data on violence against women is often collected by survey. So this makes international comparison difficult, given that women's willingness to respond and definition of sexual harassment may vary from country to country. So this is something that is very tricky. Yeah, like for instance, like in this example, something that is sexual harassment in the US is not sexual harassment in South Sudan. So this means that data cannot be easily compared internationally. So you need to take this carefully. Another thing, you need to look at the transparency. What do you know about the evidence? Okay. For instance, a scientific study has fully published its methodology and all the data on which it bases its conclusions online for other researchers to scrutinize. So if a study does not fully published the methodology and the data on which it bases its conclusion for other researchers, then that becomes a problem, you see? So we should be very, very careful about the kind of transparency that has been exposed by a particular research study. Another thing, you need to look at the reliability of the source itself. For instance, is there a track record to evaluate? For instance, you can look at Transparency International has been publishing Corruption Perception Index for more than 20 years. This has given plenty of time for experts to spot the limitations, you see? So we should look at like track record that this person has been publishing this so we can sort of believe what it says. Another thing, you need to look at the conflict of interest. Is a source's personal or private interest being served by the evidence, data, or conclusions? For example, a study on alleged health benefits of pasta was partly conducted and funded by Barilla, a major pasta maker. You see, sometimes, like somebody, like maybe if you have a business for certain type of food, you begin to hire a researcher or you begin to hire a news organization. Hey, you write about the benefits of maybe write about the benefit of beans because I have grown beans so that people will buy my beans, you see? So you should look at the conflict of interest that arises from a particular source. So this is the six-point test to look at the reliability of a particular news source. The proximity, the expertise, the rigor, the transparency, the reliability, the conflict of interest, you see? Yeah. So then, when you debunk a news story, so debunking is like the process of telling people that, hey, ABC is false because of XYZ, or hello, XYZ is false or is true because of ABC. That is what we call debunking. So fact-checking claims by politicians and debunking fake news stories are related but separate skills. While fact-checking turns primarily to official statistics and academic sources to confirm or refute public claims, debunking borrows from verification and seeks primary evidence to verify content generated by users or other sources. So this is it. Like I said, fact-checking relies primarily on official statistics and academic sources to be able to confirm or refute public claims, whereas debunking borrows from verification and it seeks primary evidence to verify content that is generated by users, that is user-generated content. So, for instance, the claims we saw in the section, fact-checkable or not, are those tackled by traditional fact-checking. So fake news tend to be dubious narratives that originate from uncertain or little known sources and gain audience through social media. So debunking these stories requires learning basic verification skills while keeping in mind the method and process of traditional fact-checking. You've already looked at this. We say fact-checking looks at claims of public relevance, and the method of fact-checking is you consult expert sources, you consult academia, and you contact government agencies. The result of fact-checking is an educated conclusion on the claim's veracity, whereas debunking looks at fake news and viral hoaxes, and verification is mostly user-generated content and alternative sources, and it seeks primary evidence from eyewitnesses, and it can look at geolocation, reverse image search, and the result of verification is a story is published or is stopped. Now, when we talk of pre-banking is when now you talk to your friends and family about the types of misinformation that they are likely to see before anything happens. So debunking is when organizations explain something is false after it has been shared. So it is important for the public, but it is not as important as pre-banking. So usually we try to talk to people about likely scams, hoaxes, and conspiracies. So this will help them get their defenses up so that when they see these rumors, they are less likely to be what? To be fooled. For example, we see several the same videos and images coming back time and time again. So it is our responsibility to talk to our friends and family, hey, you know what's up? These kind of things happen. So you need to be very, very careful, and your guards should be up. And if you must be able to safeguard yourself against different sources of misinformation. Yeah, so when it comes to health claims, you need to ask yourself these questions, like who is making the claim, what is known about them, who made the claim, do they have real medical expertise? And many people sometimes use the title doctor without having medical expertise. Is there anything that makes you doubt that they know what they're talking about? What is their motive for making the claim, and could they benefit from it in any way? So these are questions you should ask yourself when you're fact-checking a health claim. Yeah. Another thing is you need to look at whether the story has been published by mainstream media, because many claims circulated on social media never make it to mainstream media for good reason. Like most of you look at viral claims, and these viral claims never make themselves to mainstream media, and they don't do that for good reason. I see a couple of guys here like Wake Attack writes for Juba Echo. I see Thor, he writes for the Sudan's Post, and you realize that sometimes there are a lot of viral stories, but these viral stories don't make it to mainstream media. Why? Because of good reasons. This is because they are not true. Yeah, they are not true, so they cannot make it to mainstream media. For instance, in 2017, there were several reports in Senegal about a doctor in the Philippines who claimed to have discovered a vaccine for diabetes. But of course, if he had actually discovered a vaccine for diabetes 5 years earlier as claimed, it would have made news headlines somewhere, or he might have even won the Nobel Prize. You see, like recently there was some guy who claimed to have won an world academic competition or something of that sort. But that wasn't true, because in the first place, there's nothing such as that actually happened. You see, so it's kind of crazy how people make up stories. So we need to be very, very careful of what kind of stories actually make it to mainstream media. So again, if it is a health claim, you need to know whether it has been reviewed in a medical journal or not. This has been reported in mainstream media, or like these are guidelines that help sort of you to take note of important claims that keep circulating now and then. And then you need to look at the evidence supporting the claim, whether it consists of anecdotes or personal testimonies and not studies. For instance, fake keywords, a lot of fake keywords, they come with personal testimonies that may be false or may be genuine, but can be misleading. Personal testimonies can be very persuasive on social media, but if the claim relies on testimonies and not scientific evidence, you should suspect such kind of claim. Because currently we live in a world that is governed by science, so we heavily rely on scientific evidence for us to be able to handle a lot of issues every now and then. So if there was a study, you ask yourself, how was the study done? If a health claim is backed by a study, you need to ask several questions about the research that was done. For example, when was the data gathered? Make sure it's still applicable. How was the data gathered? Was it properly control test? Can the findings be generalized? How many people form part of the study? And can the findings be applicable to an entire country? For example, was it conducted in a certain state or region? So these are important questions. The last question is anyone making money from the claim cure? If so, who? So if anyone claims they have a cure for something, find out if they are making money out of it. If they are, it is another reason to be extremely skeptical about the claim. So these are important tips that can help you go a long way in trying to do fact checking, and in order to help you deal with sources in order to help you deal with fact-checking claims and other issues that come every now and then. Any questions? Any questions, guys? That brings us to the end of, that brings me to the end of my presentation for today, except there are any questions, ladies and gentlemen. Do you have any questions? We looked at so guys, we are done. We looked at, of course, our session today is what can be fact-checked. And we say that you need to ask yourself 3 important questions, whether 1, the claim is important and whether the claim is fact-checkable. And we say that the question whether the claim is important entails an editorial decision. And all of you should know that not all claims can be checked. And yeah, when you ask whether it is fact-checkable, this one sort of help you whether you can get solid evidence to support or refute the claim. And then we looked at some examples of claims, whether they are fact-checkable or not. And we say that you cannot fact-check predictions, you cannot fact-check opinions. And we also say that you need to know the difference between a fact and opinion. And we say that what can be fact-checked mainly consists of claims that can be verified with evidence and proof, but then we cannot check opinions, promises, and predictions. And we also say that opinions are based on beliefs or points of view, and they are more or less deal with our own experience and our old world view. And then we looked at the Africa Checks 5-step fact-checking process. We say the first step is to verify the claim and identify the original source. And we say that the second step is to define the terms and concepts within the claim. We say that the third step is to inspect the evidence using the latest reliable data. We say that the fourth step is to approach experts. And the fifth step is to we say that you need to be very careful in evaluating your sources, especially these are the key characteristics of original sources. We also say that you should be very considerate of reliable sources, and you can use the 6-point test that considers the proximity of the source, the expertise of the source, the rigor of the source, the transparency of the source, the reliability of the source, and whether the source is not in conflict of interest. And we say that you should be able to debunk a news story, which is different from fact-checking. And because fact-checking turns primarily to official statistics and academic sources to confirm or refute claims, whereas debunking borrows from verification and seeks primary evidence to verify user-generated content. We also looked at more of fact-checking, debunking, verification, and what they are, and a clear distinction between the 3. We looked at pre-banking and debunking. We say that pre-banking, you talk to your friends and families about misinformation so that they are less likely fooled when these things come around. And we say that debunking is where organizations explain something is false after it has been shared. And we say that there are some important questions you should ask yourself when you are checking a health claim, which includes asking yourself who is making the claim and what that person is known for, asking again who made the claim, asking again whether they have medical expertise, asking again whether anything makes you doubt that they know what they're talking about, and knowing what is their motive for making the claim and whether they could benefit from it. And you also need to know whether the story has been covered by mainstream media. You also looked at whether the story has been covered by a medical journal and if the journal is legitimate. and you look at the evidence supporting the claim, whether it consists of anecdotes, or they are just personal testimonies and not studies. You also look at how the study was done. You also look at whether someone is making money from that. So this is an entire overview and summary of the presentation. Guys, for yes, Modi, your hand was up. Modi, your hand was up. You can ask your question, please. Modi, are you getting me?
Yes, yes, exactly. I'm
Yes,
getting you
you
now.
can ask your question.
Yeah. I was a little bit differentiating between pre-banking and debunking. Can I say 211 check is doing debunking?
So you realize the channel they have used, they have tied up with this lady. And so he's breathing under the shadow of this lady. And the lady is a star. When she reads the numbers, because they're reading numbers for the distance to call, and now the journalism call it raising the flag. So when she starts, now someone call again, and everywhere, the phone, you know, she can give like 6 numbers without reading. And we realize she knows the key. Now, who is this one in already for here, and you still have the numbers before you, so that when you have that one,
Modi, is it my network or is your network? Is it my network or your network? Whose network?
I think it should be yours. Mine is super.
Whose network is disturbing?
Yours. Mine is good, man. I don't know if you're getting me.
Oh, okay. Okay, I get your question. You are saying that you are saying that is 211 check debunking or pre-banking, right? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me, 211 check is doing both. It's doing both pre-banking and debunking. So we do the pre-banking through the trainings that we run, like the physical trainings that we do, also the online trainings that we do are the examples of pre-banking. And then debunking is now the articles that we publish on our website. That one is debunking. Yeah?
True. I've gotten it. Yes.
It's clear,
yes,
right?
You're right. Correct. Yes, both. Yeah.
Yeah. So pre-banking is more or less like the education part. Yeah. Like you tell somebody before something happens. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you tell people about it, when you tell people about the scams, next time the person cannot fall for the scam. Yeah. And then now, for instance, if somebody has been scammed and then they write you that, hey, I have been scammed, so next time don't do X, Y, Z for you to avoid being scammed, then that is already debunking because it has happened.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that question. Any other